You ever wonder why a specific song can just instantly flip your mood? Or why the buzz from a certain phone notification makes your stomach drop? Well, that's not magic. It's something way more interesting. It's learning. In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the invisible psychological forces that build our habits, create our fears, and forge our skills every single day, mostly without us even noticing.
All right, so let's get right into it. The big question is, how in the world do we actually learn? How does our brain get rewired to pick up new skills, form new habits, or even develop new fears? Turns out there's a real science to it, and the answers started popping up in some pretty unexpected places.
Get this. During the pandemic, scientists actually trained dogs to sniff out COVID-19. Now, just stop and think about that for a second. How do you teach a dog to connect a scent that's totally invisible to us with a specific action? It's an incredible thing, and it's also the perfect way to start understanding the mechanics of how we learn. So, just so we're all on the same page, let's use the official definition here. Psychologists define learning as any lasting change in our behavior that's based on experience. And we're not just talking about studying for a test. We're talking about deep changes in the things we do. And we're going to look at two main ways this happens: learning by connecting the dots and learning just by watching what other people do.
All right, first up is probably the weirdest, most fascinating kind of learning. It's the stuff that happens in the background, on total autopilot. It's called classical conditioning, and it explains all those gut reactions and involuntary reflexes you have.
To really get this, imagine this poor guy Bob taking a shower. Someone in his apartment flushes a toilet, the water pressure drops, and he gets blasted with scalding hot water. Ouch, right? So the next day, he's back in the shower. He hears that same toilet flush, and boom! He panics and jumps back before the water temperature even changes. His brain has already hardwired that connection. Flush equals pain. That's classical conditioning in a nutshell. And this is the exact same thing a Russian scientist, Ivan Pavlov, stumbled on completely by accident back in the day. He was studying how dogs digest food, and he noticed something weird. The dogs would start drooling not just when they got the food, but when they saw the lab assistant who brought the food. He realized he'd found something huge, a fundamental way the brain learns. Okay, let's break down how this actually works. It all kicks off with something called the unconditioned stimulus, or US for short. Just think of this as the natural trigger. For Pavlov's dogs, the US was the food. It automatically makes the dogs react. You don't have to teach a hungry dog to get excited about food. It's instinct. And that natural reaction? Well, that's got a name too. The unconditioned response, or UR. It's the reflex that just happens. So the food is the US, and the dog drooling is the UR. It's pure biology, no learning involved here. Yet. Okay, now here comes the magic trick. Pavlov started introducing something that meant nothing to the dogs. A bell. At first, he'd ring it, and nothing. It's just a sound. But then he started ringing the bell right before he brought out the food. Bell, then food. Bell, then food. Over and over again. And the dog's brain started to connect the dots. That boring old bell was turning into a signal. It became the conditioned stimulus, the CS.
So what was the result? It's kind of mind-blowing. Pretty soon, Pavlov could just ring the bell with no food in sight, and the dogs would start drooling anyway. That drool, caused by the bell alone, is our final piece, the conditioned response, or CR. It's a brand new, totally learned reflex. The brain literally rewired itself, and that's how we learn on autopilot.
But okay, that's all automatic, involuntary stuff. What about the things we actually choose to do? You know, like deciding to study for a test, or, let's be honest, deciding to check our phone for the 100th time. Well, that brings us to the next big idea, operant conditioning. This is all about how we learn from what happens after we act. And this is the absolute key difference right here. Classical conditioning, what we just talked about, is about your brain linking two things out in the world, like a flush and hot water, to cause an involuntary reaction. Operant conditioning is different. It's about linking what you do, a voluntary behavior, with what happens next, the consequence.
The whole idea behind this is based on something brilliantly simple called the law of effect. This guy Thorndike put cats in these puzzle boxes. He saw that if a cat accidentally did something that led to a good result, like hitting a lever that opened the door so it could get a fish, it started doing that action more and more. It's so simple. If you do something and good stuff happens, you're going to do it again. If you do something and bad stuff happens, you'll probably stop.
Now, this whole thing gets broken down into 4 types. You're either trying to make a behavior happen more often, that's reinforcement, or less often, that's punishment.
But here's the part that trips people up. Positive just means you add a stimulus, and negative means you take one away. So positive reinforcement is adding something good, like praise. But negative reinforcement is taking away something bad, like when you hit snooze to stop that annoying alarm. In both cases, the behavior, getting praised or hitting snooze, is strengthened.
So, we've covered learning on autopilot and learning from the results of our actions. But think about it. A huge amount of what we know didn't come from getting a reward or a punishment directly. We learned it just by looking around and watching other people. This is our third major type, observational learning. The most famous and kinda startling example of this is Albert Bandura's Bobo doll experiment. He had some kids watch an adult play quietly and other kids watch an adult just beat the stuffing out of this inflatable doll. Later, when the kids were left alone with the same doll, what happened? You guessed it. The ones who saw the aggressive adult copied the exact same behavior, punching, kicking, and throwing the doll around.
So for this monkey see, monkey do learning to work, Bandura said 4 things have to happen. First, you have to pay attention. Can't learn what you don't see. Second, you have to retain the information. You got to remember it. Third is motor reproduction. I mean, I can watch a pro athlete all day, but I have to have the physical ability to actually do what they're doing. And finally, reinforcement. If you see the person you're watching get praised for what they did, you're way more likely to try it yourself.
Okay, so we've got learning automatically, learning from consequences, and learning by watching. But there's one final piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it might be the most powerful one of all. It's not about the process. It's about what you believe about your own ability to learn. This is where things get really personal and really practical.
Here's the bottom line. Your mindset can be either a powerful accelerator or a hard brake on your ability to learn. The research on this from psychologist Carol Dweck is an absolute game changer. She basically showed that what we believe about our own intelligence and talent is one of the biggest factors in how much we actually achieve.
Dweck basically says there are 2 camps. People with a fixed mindset believe that things like intelligence are set in stone. You've either got it or you don't. So for them, failure is devastating. It feels like a final judgment. But then there are people with a growth mindset. They believe that abilities can be developed, that your brain is like a muscle you can strengthen. For them, failure isn't the end. It's just feedback. It's an opportunity to learn and get better.
So in the end, while all these invisible forces are constantly at play, your mindset is the one thing you can truly control. Understanding how learning works is the first step, that's for sure. But actually believing in your own capacity to grow and change, well, that's what unlocks everything. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What could you master, what could you become if you truly believed you could learn anything?